Hello, hello, everybody. We are now live. Thank you so much for your patience out there in cyberspace. We had a little technical snafu, but without much ado, I have my esteemed guest here, Adam Stone, and I'm just going to do a little introduction here. So I wanted to talk about issues ranging from real estate to, protesting and momentum and, creating lasting change when there's so much upheaval in the world. And Adam Stone is an attorney and a real estate broker working in real estate development, commercial real estate. And his focus has been on business formation and litigation. And we also see that you have some experience here in sort of creating systems around collaborating with diverse people from around the world in the nonprofit world, and you've created or co-created a nonprofit organization called the Committed Collective. So tell us a little bit more about yourself and your focus around educating people and empowering them to take more action against systemic inequity crippling our communities.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Ernestine. First of all, I want to thank you for allowing me to come onto your show and give me this platform to speak. Like you said, I'm a real estate broker, but also a real estate attorney, business attorney. I've been practicing for about 8 years and been a licensed real estate broker in California for a few years now. So my practice really focuses on helping people find ways to best monetize their business goals or real estate goals. A lot of times those are combined, whether it's through a lease or through a property purchase, property sale. So helping people maximize the profit potential of not only their business idea, but the property they're using is what I try to focus on with my clients. So, my day-to-day is spent a lot in San Diego County, working with clients all across the board in all different markets. And it gives me a great sense of, the things that we're going through, not only in San Diego County, but, unfortunately, some of the issues are seen throughout the nation. So, what you alluded to with the nonprofit aspect, I have a great group of people that I'm working with, and we're co-founding a nonprofit that is really focused on building bridges and allowing facilitation between people who are interested and a lot more motivated to become involved and become catalysts for change after the things that have transpired over the last few months in 2020, and then putting them together with processes, programs, people, and initiatives that are already in place and need more help, need contribution, need a platform to take their great success and transfer that to other areas. So that's what we're really trying to build, is a system and a network that's focused on collaboration and focused on building instead of being divisive like a lot of people are dealing with now.
Thank you for that, and thank you for letting us know about yourself and your goal. So you created something because you want it to be a part of the change that we want to see in the world. So tell us more about just where you see your nonprofit aims, taking us as a social justice movement, taking us as, millennials and a society, and how can other people be inspired to take similar action in creating something that doesn't exist? And by what can they do when they feel powerless, when they want to do something, but they can't?
Oh, I think a lot of it comes down to just learning more and doing your research and educating yourself in terms of not only how we got here, but also what's there currently to try to address the situation, address the problem. There are, like I mentioned, there are a lot of programs and initiatives that I'm, becoming more aware of myself. I'm not trying to act like I'm, an expert on this area. I'm learning and educating myself every day to try to become more aware of the things that are going on both the positive end and on the negative end. And I think, without a clear understanding of what we're dealing with, it's hard to know how to address the problem, because you really can't know how to fix a problem if you don't know what the problem is. So, I think as a starting point, whether it's dealing with education, healthcare, law enforcement, real estate and business, there's so many areas that are negatively impacted by inequality that you can start anywhere, and anywhere that you're passionate about or you have skills in, to start to focus on what things are wrong or what things have been tried to address the issue. And, you know, when things are positive, you can build off of that and try to replicate that in other areas. And when things need improvement, you can use those experiences to learn from it and, you know, revamp it so it can have a much more effective impact.
Thanks. I feel inspired already by, you know, just kind of like having that information under, you know, your you know, under your belt and being able to kind of put it towards, you know, creating a sustained, you know, momentum. So you kind of touched on just now, like create a consensus. Like, how do you find a consensus for like moving forward and, you know, just kind of, you know, you're collaborating with multiple people. You know, how do you come to, excuse me, how do you get together and just kind of puts your ideas out there so that it's coherent and everybody's on the same page?
I mean, fortunately, you know, the people that I'm working with on this project, they're like-minded, they're very ambitious, talented in their own right, and they have a lot of different skill sets that are, you know, different from mine. So it provides a great environment for us to bounce ideas off of each other. And, you know, like I mentioned earlier, educating yourself to go out to find what are those main gaps in terms of why we have such divisiveness about, you know, building our communities, when I think everybody would agree that everybody wants a safe, flourishing community for everybody to be able to enjoy. I think at least the general public does. So, you know, I think when we're talking about having those hard conversations, you know, one of the main factors behind me working with the people that I am to build this was having those conversations early on. People reached out to me when the idea of racism and the idea of how impactful racism has been throughout our lives really came to the forefront. You know, people did come to me directly to have some of those tough conversations. And, you know, I think the whole idea is not really focusing on getting apologies, but more about getting action toward making some positive change and getting things better than we all know they are now. And, you know, I think we're all committed to having that happen.
Thank you. Those are good points, really, indeed. And so, like, how do you navigate, you know, just that kind of being able to have the tough conversations and to have, you know, teachable moments? And as a lawyer, what advice would you, you know, give to people wanting to make changes to our laws and, you know, step up in ways other than protesting?
Oh, well, I think, you know, protesting is a great tool and it definitely has its benefits. And, you know, I think it's a great starting point, but in the end, it really does come down to going to the polls and really using our voice in terms of our ability to vote to make an impact. With the mail-in ballots, things are going to be a lot easier in some senses, but there are going to be more difficulties involved with making sure our ballots are registered and counted and, you know, put towards the process. So, you know, when it comes to focusing on specific issues or specific policies and legislation in play, you know, again, I think you have to go out and educate yourself, you know, whether it's through finding things that you're passionate about and looking at the local level and, you know, looking in community to figure out what the laws are for your community. That's a great starting point because, you know, I think while there's a huge focus on federal law, our group is really committed toward having an overall nationwide change, but something that starts at the very local levels, because, you know, that's where a lot of the law enforcement, real estate, education, a lot of those laws are state-based and state-centric. So you have to start more local.
So, and I'm glad we're getting the perspective, you know, and I'm glad I actually got introduced to you, you know, being an attorney, because law school is something that, you know, being in this movement right now that I've really been considering and, you know, putting serious thought into and, you know, following up with law school applications. And in some ways, I wonder, you know, does having a law degree make you better able to fight, you know, against injustice because you know all the nuances of the law? And, you know, will it make you a better advocate, you know, for some of these things? Does it give you that sense of sort of, you know, I'm empowered, and so now I have the responsibility with this ability to decipher the law, ability to help people navigate through what they don't know. and to help find clarity for people who have been marginalized and for voiceless, for people who are trying to get through to people, and finding their cries falling on deaf ears. Do you think that the law, and particularly as a Black man, does it help having that tool under your belt?
I think it definitely helps. I don't want to say that I'm better or have more power to make an impact than anybody else, because again, everybody has a voice to vote, and people have the ability to use their voice not only in the ballot box, but also just on social media to garner interest and raise awareness on things that are going on. So again, if you go online, you can find a lot of different educational resources that are out there that can not only show you what laws are in play and kind of guide you through those laws, summarize those laws for you, but there are also other groups out there that are able and willing to give seminars. And that's one thing that we're looking to do with TCC, is to be able to help educate other groups and other people who are looking for ways to not only learn about what laws are affecting them, but learn about ways to change those laws, learn about other laws that are being proposed and how those things can improve and how they might need to be tweaked to make a better impact. There's a lot of groups that are already out there getting involved. One of our board members, he has a group called the Humanity Movement that's very focused in San Diego on those types of initiatives. And that's the type of collaboration that we're looking to build, because there are groups all across the country that have already started this fight, and they're just looking to, kind of build that network. And, through one more unified voice, it makes a lot more sense and has a lot more impact than, very disjointed and individual groups working on their own.
True. And I think historically, that's why certain movements have been more successful than others, because everybody has a unified message and they completely understand that, the role now comes to, the onus is on you to be able to teach folks, how to stay consistent, stay on brand, and, keep with that message. So I just kind of want to shift gears a little bit. You have a background in, real estate development, and tell us about the real estate market right now. And is this a good time to invest in property? Because I've been hearing conflicting things where maybe it's not a good time to buy a home, but maybe it is, because interest rates are low and property values are, higher. So can you break that down for us? Like what contributes to a good market and a good time to buy a home?
Oh, I got to give you the lawyer response here that everything depends. It all depends. So everybody's situation is different. Everybody's current financial situation, their timeline to make a move is different. And I think it comes down to what their goals are. If you're looking at somebody who's looking for single family home for their own residential purchase, personal, they may have the time that they can wait. There's a lot of uncertainty right now with the economy, and there have already been signs that with the stimulus package maybe coming to an end, that can lead to a huge impact on the housing market, both rentals and ownership. So, I do think if there was a downturn, that presents a buyer's market for potential deals. But at the same time, there's a lot of development going on right now. California in particular is, the market that I focus on. And in San Diego, well, California in general, they've produced a new law that came into effect in 2020 that's focused on building accessory dwelling units. So those are like granny flats, converted studios that are originally garages, things like that can add income streams to properties, that add a lot of value to properties. So it gives an ability for somebody to still invest in the market, still have an ability to cushion the blow if the market were to take a downturn, but at the same time, it does have a high upside, because you're taking, 1 unit, 2 units, and turning it into maybe 3 or 4 units with an expedited process. So, to answer your question, I do think it's still a potential market for people to go out and buy, and they just have to be mindful of, the circumstances for that specific deal.
Okay, thank you. Because, I'm definitely, looking and, just wanting to know, what does it mean like that people are, wanting to, explore different options. And so that actually leads to another housing related question, which is, what are your thoughts on the recent kind of rent and, I'm so sorry, let me go ahead and stop that. The rent evictions and the eviction moratorium that, recently came to an end. And, how is that going to, sort of just affect cities and, just the way that infrastructure is built on needing to have, that source of tax base and revenue coming from, that, especially in cities where maybe there are more renters than there are homeowners. So tell us a little bit more about that and your take on, just the end of the eviction moratorium period.
Oh, I mean, I think with the eviction moratorium, it's going to take a lot of teamwork from, the renters, the owners, the lenders, all the way down, because, you can't have one side take the whole brunt of the situation. And obviously people are losing their jobs. It's going to be a lot more difficult for them to make rent payments. And, with a moratorium, that puts some strain on the property owners who have their own mortgage payments to make a lot of times. And then, from the lender's perspective, they claim that they have a lot more potential loss as well. And you can't have a whole market that goes in default, whether it's through rentals or through mortgage payments. So, I've worked with clients here, whether it's mostly commercial clients that are working with their tenants, and they're not the same moratorium laws in place yet for commercial deals, but some states are working on similar legislation to give commercial tenants a break. And, I think that makes sense, but at the same time, you can't forget about the owners, because, if they go into default, then, the bank or whoever the lender is, they're going to take out that tenant likely anyway. So, there has to be some collaboration, some teamwork between the landlord and the tenant to make sure the tenants can still pay what they can do, based on their businesses being able to operate under the closure laws, but then, still having some mindfulness of what the landlord, the property owner needs to do to make their payments. And, the property owner has to show some flexibility too, because you can't just have, no understanding of what's going on. And I've seen a lot of people have that understanding. It's been good to see, because otherwise you're leading to lawsuits and, things that would just make it even more of a fight than it needs to be.
Okay. And last question. What is your take on the term, just we're seeing a lot of, civil unrest happen throughout the country, and people are demanding, for things radically. And, because asking for things the old-fashioned way hasn't worked in the past. And so, but then there are also counter arguments that say, well, there are a lot of, crimes that are happening in inner cities, and, there are Black on Black crimes. What is your take on that term? I've been, really preaching to folks that, it's a misnomer. But, how can we kind of stop that discussion? Because I know you said you've had to, kind of have difficult conversations with people more often now. Well-meaning friends who will maybe want to know, like, okay, well, how do I navigate this? What do I say about that? And, how do you even broach the conversation? And so, how do you begin to just start something where people are unlearning something that even us as Black folks will say, like, oh, well, okay, well, look at folks, they're doing the wrong things. And it's just like, well, it's not them. It's more the system is leading to these sort of actions that make people have to, people who are well off don't go, commit crimes, because, when you're committing a crime, it's because you have to. I mean, of course, you've got like, white collar crimes, and you've got like, things that happen because of greed. And I mean, like, there are a myriad of reasons, jealousy, but for the most part, I think the discussion, I've been listening to Ibram Kendi's book, Stamped from the Beginning. And it just kind of talks about, us having to learn and unlearn as a society, what what certain terms really mean and where they stem from and how they're wrong. And you now have to unlearn, the term black on black crime, or to even unlearn the fact that you can't say that, an entire group of people is more predisposed to be, this or that, or, even in response to, police brutality, when it comes to the questions of like, oh, well, what was, Eric Garner doing, the reason why the police had to respond so tough, with him, or what was, George Floyd doing? Why couldn't he just, stop resisting? And I think, having that conversation more about, not what was the person doing, why were they in the wrong, because that's now you're blaming the victim. So how do we start to reframe the terms we use? Like, just saying that certain people are going to be, oh, look at the statistics. It says that, violent crimes happen here, or it's black on black crime. So how do we begin to even, and I know this is a tough one, which is why it's our last question. But I always, just kind of want to get people's takes on, having the tough conversations, because, it's not easy making change happen. And, getting out there and yelling in the streets isn't the only way to do it. And I know as a lawmaker, that is my responsibility, to find multiple avenues for every voice to be heard and everybody to be considered and every perspective to be understood, and then to have moments of learning and unlearning.
No, I mean, I agree with what you're saying in terms of, the education process and learning new things, but at the same time realizing that as you learn new things, you have to address some of the old mindsets that you had. And, a lot of times, even people who are trying to be well-intentioned, they might have negative mindsets and or not negative mindsets, but mindsets that really get around and are oblivious to the issue. Even terms like colorblind and things like that. Before they were seen as things that were positives towards racism and showing some type of awareness, but at the same time, it shows a lack of awareness. And, that's something that I want to steer toward more, just accountability, more awareness on situations. And, I think it depends on everybody becoming a little bit more open to listening to other situations, other ideas, other mindsets, as opposed to trying to, unnecessarily just impose their own thoughts and positions on people. Listening to conservative viewpoints and liberal viewpoints, you hear some common themes. And, I think when you're listening to both sides, you're able to at least get a better idea of how to try to figure out ways to talk to both sides in a way that can get somewhere. Because, right now people are putting up their walls with the election coming up, and it's becoming so competitive that it takes away from the ability to collaborate and, come together for that positive change that we should all want. So, maybe you can give me a little bit more information in terms of what you're doing as a city council person. Maybe that can shine some light in terms of what we can all do, from the perspective of not only being in your position, but also knowing that you weren't always in that position and you had to make changes on your own to get there. And I think that just shows a great example of what people can do.
Oh, no, I was born in this position. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it is, an interesting space to navigate. And you really do have to rely on your moral compass. And you always have to stand up for what's right. And so I think the biggest thing is to always go back to the people, because they put you here, and to find out what they want, and to find out, what works best for them, because you have to remember who you serve. And I think, my thing is always, I'd like to have workshops. I'm actually having a workshop, local politics info session on Monday. And it's a forum for people to get answers, a forum for people to be informed and to get education, and all of the things that, that I was super excited about when I, first talked to you and was introduced to you via Katie. And, it just, I think it's important to be able to create systems that, break down problems. And I'm a huge fan of workshops and, you know, just getting together and hearing all of the brainstorms, all of the perspectives, and then writing something down and then trying solutions and seeing what sticks and then revisiting them. That's the biggest thing, because it's not enough to, you know, wash your hands once and be like, all right, I'm clean for the next, you know, month. It has to be something that's revisited over and over again. And that's how you, to me, you know, in this position, you know, talking about the learning and unlearning and adopting in new things, like, you know, I think a year or 5 years ago, nobody was talking about anti-racism. That wasn't even a term that was in people's, you know, just colloquium. So it's more, you know, understanding definitions, learning, incorporating, and then, you know, sharing that information and then building on it, and, you know, just kind of building and perfecting from there.
That makes sense.
So I think it's growth is an important part of, you know, the learning process. So, well, thank you so much for coming on my show. This has been Quick to Politic for all of you out there in the audience. And like I said, to a few of you out there who stuck around with us, if you have any questions, feel free to, you know, let us know. And thank you for sharing your perspective on all of these issues that, you know, run the gamut with social commentary. This has been Quick to Politic. So, good night, and thank you out there, Facebook.